Hello, Great Couch family. This is Stanley,
And Otito.
and we're back
After Diwali, right?
after Diwali. Yes.
Yeah.
And disclaimer:
Mm-hmm.
somebody's better dressed than the other person. Let's just leave that and go.
Maybe because I'm going to church and
Okay.
work.
Okay.
Who
Just,
knows? But I'm heading out from here.
just say.
But yeah, so we've been, having this conversation back and forth of what are we bringing today. And I said we're right in the middle of it, right? In terms of what you call conversation catch up, or what you call catch up conversations, crucial conversations. I don't know what it is. I mean, we're here on Grey Couch, but still. So, yeah, let me start from me, right? This time around. And I feel like
Is this a candid talk session?
Maybe because of my job, right? I feel like it cannot even be easy being married to me, right? In that sense, let me confess with all honesty. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this, right? Because someone will say, oh, she's now, outing herself. But it's this idea of, evidence, right? So it's like this episode is to show me the evidence. Because as it were, right, in the last few months, we've been going through quite a lot of stressors, right? Things going on around, and our usual routine has changed a little bit, right? Little lot, I don't know.
More than a little.
Yeah. So travel, there was a lot of travel involved. There was just things happening. And so, when your routine changes, you start, and after a while, it's like, it looks like this big thing. Okay, so Mr. now said, hey, come, let's go for breakfast. I want to take you to a nice place for breakfast. So we're sitting there, and then at breakfast is like, okay, there's this complaint fest, right? Which is okay. And that the thing what we're saying is what we practice, right? What we've talked about. I listened. I listened. I didn't say,
start defending yourself on every line.
Yes, I didn't do that, right? I listened all the way, which is interesting because I don't get that sometimes from him. And that's part of the conversation, right? So I listened. Then after I listened, I said, okay, thank you for telling me. However, right? Let's open up the calendar. So we open up the calendar and we're looking at all the dates, right, that the complaints had been about. And it's like, this happened on this day, that happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. So it turned out that the complaint that looked like it was like this, by the time, we now looked at the evidence, it had shrunk to this size, right? And again, this wasn't a question of, oh, I got you. But it's this idea of sometimes we have an issue and we over magnify it, or there's an issue, so we feel neglected or something, but we over magnify it, right? And this is something that women do a lot, so this is not gender specific or anything like that. So that it becomes like, what's happening here, right? So this was one of those in that sense. So the breakfast ended very well because, again, we did not go to quarrel or anything. It was just like, here are my thoughts, or this is how I'm feeling. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. Let's look at the evidence. So I'm very much like that, of show me the evidence. And this is why sometimes, people don't come to me to settle story, because it's like, I know that there are always two sides to, to a problem, right? So even if it was my girlfriend, I will try and we'll kind of think through, right, all the scenarios in that sense. So this was one of those. However, in that same conversation as well, as we were going, on about this, it was now the question of, okay, this grace that I've given to you of listening without, saying anything, of just hearing you out, how come I don't get it from you? Like, how come every time I'm telling you something that, not every time, right? How come, sometimes when I'm telling you something that I feel, you're always trying to, not always, you try to, tell me the reason why I'm not feeling that way, right? That there's always a reason behind something. Okay, so, and then he said, well, sometimes I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? And I said, okay, you have to know the times that you do that, because it may be nice, but it's not in every circumstance that you have to kind of play devil's advocate of, here's what you thought, but here's what I was thinking, right? Because you can see the difference here between the first conversation and this one. This one is about thinking. The other one is about facts of things that happened. And so it's like, how do you differentiate between those types of conversations in terms of catch-up conversations, right? So that was kind of part of the issue there. So
there are always two sides to the story.
yes, true.
You heard her side, and this is my own perspective of the story.
Okay.
Now, saying I want to play devil's advocate, it sounds combative somehow. But I mean, you're proving my point when you say there are always two sides to the story, right? You have this perspective, and my own initial job is to say, okay, while this is your perspective, I'm not trying to undermine your perspective. Here is my perspective, and as two equals in one listed, so you should be able to look at the two.
So are you missing the point? I'm talking about a complaint. I'm not talking about random conversations. In random conversations, it's even good that someone plays devil's advocate. Right? I'm talking about complaints, right? That's where we started from, the complaints conversation, right? That when you were talking to me and you finished, then we looked at hard facts, hard evidence to say this, right? In that sense, because what you were feeling, that was right. I couldn't change that, but it's like, okay, you do know though that on this day the family traveled, on this other day this happened, on this other day, like we literally looked through the calendar and it was like, oh, okay, so what was I thinking, right? In that sense. And so it was like, it almost like it changed the frame of reference of the conversation. But I'm talking about a situation where there are no facts like that. It's just somebody saying, I asked you to do this, and the other person said, yes, I heard, but I was going to do X before Y. You understand? Okay. That kind of thing. So I'm saying those are two different kinds of conversations, right? Where in one of them you're presenting data, but in the other one it's just the person saying, I feel this way, or this is what happened, and then you are saying, well, what happened is your perspective, but this is how I saw it.
Okay, so where there's a complaint and you have evidence, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side you are on, evidence should be evidence. No one can deny evidence. Unless I'm not going to call certain people, okay, that are giving true, false.
I know,
alternative facts. But evidence should be evidence. But in the other case whereby it's not a complaint, but it's people, you are asked to do something and you didn't do it for whatever reason, I have no response for that, because there's no facts to back it up. It could be perception in that part also. However, what I do know is that these catch-up conversations, they are good to kind of iron these out. And for us guys, if we have an idea that we are going to be the target on this, in this catch-up or non-catch-up conversation, or where the evidence is becoming defensive and almost not defensive, even guarded, because you're like, listen, it's going to be my fault one way or another, even when it's not my fault.
I guess my point is saying, but why are men like that? That's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't understand, because I was on the receiving side of the complaints. I listened. I just was like, okay, this is the person's, this is what they're feeling, right? You validate the feeling and then say, let's look at the evidence, right, against this feeling. So I'm saying I could have gone into very defensive of, oh, you're accusing me of something that I didn't do. You understand? So I guess that's sometimes the
crux of the matter.
Yeah, the crux of the matter, like this thing of almost like make room for us. We are the defensive gender, so to speak, which is okay. I mean, I guess anthropologically, right, if you feel like your job is to defend your family or whatever, you always get into a defensive stance if an aggressor comes in, right? Not to say that the wife is the aggressor, but if an aggressor comes in, right, in that time. But I'm saying that then becomes almost like a hypervigilant response. Why does it always have to be that somebody is saying something against you? Because remember in that conversation, so I said to you that it's funny, that you are even bringing this up, right? You are talking about this because, like, to the external people, you look like the most gentle person, the person that will not hurt a fly. And I said, that is not how I experience you, right? Because I'm the spouse. Just the same way you don't experience me, the way other people might look at me and say, she's too hard, right? In that sense.
So you are trying to say that I am one way to the public and a different way to you?
We are all that way, honestly.
Objection, my love. Objection, my lord. I strongly and strictly
all that
agree.
This is why you hear the saying, there's that, it's not a truism, but it's like a known saying that quiet people are the most dangerous. And I always say it's true, At least the people that are loud, you know what they're saying. They've said it, they've moved on. The quiet ones, plotting, non-plotting, doing all kinds of things here and there. Yeah.
I mean, I can take a stab at your question.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for my gender.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I will only speak for myself. Mm-hmm. But this same, historically, or even if through evolution, as in, whenever we've had these type of conversations, 9 times out of 10, it's the guy's fault. It's always the guy's fault. And so we're like, okay, it's going to be my fault here. Let me see how I can make less the impact of this blame game. Oh, let me finish. I know you have something to but trying to just take a stab at that seriously, I always feel like, okay, let me hear what you have to say, and my not respond. My brain is just going, oh, this is what you meant here, but that's not what I was thinking. That's not what I was thinking. And if I wait a couple of seconds, I'm going to forget what I was trying to say about that. So let me just get this in right now and let the person know that, okay, no, this is not what I was thinking. This is not what I was thinking. However, this is what I was thinking. I don't know. I don't know what it is, whether it is for other guys, but as a guy, when you come in like, you're like, but this is not what, no, this is all wrong, So you're hoping that I'm hoping I can fix the frame really quick and let that pass quickly, and let's get on to other things. However, our conversations, you are not in a hurry to move to another frame. You want to analyze the frame here. And as you're analyzing the frame, I'm seeing failure here. I'm seeing inadequacy. I'm seeing, I didn't meet up to, even though I put my best effort into it. That's what I'm seeing right there and then. But you are just seeing that as pure analysis. Oh, this isn't the fact. I'm like, okay, what's this? Let this cross pass and let me move on to other things and let me try again, or let's reset the record and let me start again. What's going on to at least my mind? Guys, if you have a different thing, you can send me a text.
Okay, so 2 things I heard from that: fix, and that's the thing. Like, trying to fix something. Sometimes, how many times do we say women don't need to be fixed? They need to be heard.
Okay, that one is going to take us another long session.
So that's one, right? That fixing.
Women need to be fixed. Guys, women don't need to be fixed. They need to be heard.
I was like,
guys
want to fix.
We have
and fix.
I mean,
so that's the thing now. How do you then, like, at least learn to, I don't want to say tamper it down, because sometimes you really need fixing, right? Like, there's situations like, hey, my car is, out and I need help, even though sometimes, the fixing causes more trouble. But there are times when, like, you really need fixing. But in this kind of conversation thing, you find out that, okay, it doesn't need fixing. It just needs listening. And I think that when you say fault, right, it's interesting because, again, that's a defensive stance, right? I'm going to be blamed here already, even before the conversation starts. You know what I mean? So to me, that's a defensive stance. And that's why that conversation thing, it takes 2, right? In that sense, the way that I present it, but the way that the other person also takes it. You see what I'm saying?
True.
And so to me, that's how do you then learn, to do these conversations? I don't want to say tenderly, right? But I think tenderly is the word. Speak tenderly, listen tenderly as well.
Okay. How I've been able to cope, right, is that, one, as much as possible, I try not to take it personal.
Okay.
And this is like if I'm fighting an evolutionary battle. My whole being that's saying, oh, that just means you didn't do it. But I'm like, she's just stating her points. I do know that those conversations that are not internal, like to our relationship, as in, oh, this happened on the outside, or this happened with your office, or this happened those I'm able to come into and even listen, listen better than if I am neck deep. If I don't want to use the word target, but sometimes that's the way it feels, as though, oh, in this conversation, who is the culprit here? I'm a culprit here, or I'm a co-conspirator. And so how do I I'm going to use the word fix again, as opposed to, oh, this happened and I'm an observer. I can observe. I don't know how you're going to change that. But reality, that is how we see it.
In reality, though, right? You cannot. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, the two types of conversations are different. Relational conversations must needs happen for a relationship to move on. True. If you're saying you don't want those to happen, the relationship is already in danger, right? We talk about this all the time.
True.
Like, it's okay to say I don't want this conversation, but realize that you're not nurturing anything. Like, the soil is lying fallow, so to speak. Like, there's nothing that you are trying to grow there.
But either extreme is a problem. If you need to get some non-relational conversations in, so that there's some playful banter, there's some camaraderie in there, before let's dive deep and dig into the weeds and try and fix some issues that I use fixed again. I know
I hear what you're saying,
but what I'm saying is,
again, I'm also saying this thing of your talking should not be on ephemeral thing. I don't know how to explain. You know how they say, like, if when you are your conversations should not be those external things. It shouldn't be driven by that, right? It should be, otherwise you're just like touching the surface of things.
But those surface touching of things, they can dig deeper.
How?
In that, what does this guy say in his studies, John Gottman, that in his love lab, he listened to people that their banter would have been cut out of any Hollywood script because it was so mundane, so boring, as it were. But he knew that they are making beats for connections. They are making beats for connections here and there. And so with that together, I'm saying that when you have that under your belt and a difficult conversation comes about, you're able to remember, okay, we're trying to push ahead here. I remember when we had this conversation.
I'm trying to remember that in the heat of an argument.
Not the heat of the argument. You're not going to remember the heat of, but hopefully when you're coming down, you have more water under the bridge. So, okay, we've been through this before, and so we're not going to it. I am not saying those deep conversations are not necessary. I agree. But I'm saying that they are so much more frequent. Now, it's probably that we remember that more because they are painful conversations. And so you're able to remember that a lot easier than the happy-go-lucky and fruitful conversations. So doesn't that bear on us to have more of those other fruitful conversations, since we forget them so easily, than when we have the big ticket issues that, hey, we're not going to skip at this. I'm just saying, from a lady's perspective, it's going to be different. I'm just giving you the guy's perspective here. If I know that each time we're having a conversation, it's going to be painful, emotional.
So then I think the word conversation is the wrong conversation to use, because it now looks like everything is agenda item. That's not how life works now.
Okay.
That's not how life works, at least.
So what would you rather use?
I feel like, like you said, one of them is banter, you understand? And you're not looking at banter as a conversation, right? Conversation, in my mind, is something that is scheduled between two people, like the way we are sitting here and saying, okay, let's talk about this particular issue. And we're taking it from all the other angles, so we're talking, right? But the banter is like, oh my God, today at work, XYZ. I'm not necessarily even introducing it. I'm just saying it, right? Like, I call on the phone and, you hear me talking about this. So I'm not going to look at that as, a conversation, right? Because if you were to count all those, it's uncountable now between two people who are friends. Like, you are just chatting and chatting. But if it's this one to say, okay, we want to sit down and talk about this, or, text about this, or reminisce about this, then that's something that is like, almost like there's an agenda, like I'm saying, to that conversation. She gets. Yes. The other side, I'll tell you now that I don't know how, because I don't know that I have that experience necessarily, right? Because again, I try to give things their own buckets. The other side that is, to me, in my mind, dangerous is where a light banter now turns into that kind of heavy conversation, right? It literally dampens the mood, because, like, how did you go from A to Z? As in, how did you go from, DEFCON 1 to 4? DEFCON 1 to DEFCON 4. But you see what I'm saying, right? So there's room for saying, let's have this conversation about this. You understand? But then what happens is people come in guarded, you know. I guess because I don't like to be taken by surprise, I was like, how do you go from A to B? Like, how did we get here? You know what I mean? So if you're looking at these conversations, which one is better, right? And how do you come into them with the presence of mind to say, I'm just going to listen? You understand? Now, I can't tell you what to do, but what about bringing a pen and paper so that you can hold those thoughts, you know what I mean, and jot them down, which is what you normally do. So I don't know why you're going all around and saying things, but this is what you normally do. Like, you're bringing a pen to say, okay, she said this, she said this, she said that. You understand? For you, because maybe you might be
she's leaking my secrets now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's kind of it. Like, these conversations, right? The ones you're bringing the evidence, the ones where it's like, you know, I'm not, what you're saying is not how I experience you, or how I experience this, or my perception. How do you differentiate the two? And how do you come into a stance where you're receptive to what is happening in the conversation? This is outside of the normal banter.
So, guys, I mean, I've said my own bit about how I approach these conversations.
Or banter.
Or
which one?
Banter slash conversations. You know? And that's my own take on it.
Yeah.
That I try not to take it personal. I
you know, we're going to come back to this though.
How so?
Yeah, of the experiencing, right? Yeah. Okay, but continue.
Back to you guys. What techniques do you use to I won't say endure or survive, but thrive in these conversations whereby they've asked you for evidence, and the evidence is proving that what you initially thought is not how it might have been. Now, that's not to say someone has to start regarding evidence and storing and waiting.
No, it was just this particular conversation was very easy, right, to look on the calendar and see, because it had to do with dates, right? There are times when it may not be easy to be able to say this because people's remembering is different, right, in that sense. So, yeah. So that's what we have for you guys for this week. Next time, though, we want to pick up on what you're saying. This thing, I want to keep coming. I keep coming back to it about how the way people experience me outside is different. That sounds a little bit duplicitous in my mind. I think it happens to everyone. It's just, how do you tease it? How do you tease it apart? I think the thing would be why it's seeming like a problem is we're looking at it from this perspective of someone seems nice on the outside, then maybe they're not nice on the inside, which is not the case for you. That's not what we're talking about. The reverse is usually harder for people to understand. Like, someone who seems hard and unyielding is very soft and kind on the inside, right? That's kind of it. But it's basically experiencing, like, how does your partner experience you, right, in that sense. But let's not give out all the tidbits, because it's a conversation you and I have had quite often. And if we're honest, the children have accused. So we're bringing the kids into it now. Because they're witnesses now. They're part of the witnesses to this life, which is why I said children will humble you. I keep saying this all the time, right? Again, they'll humble you. Unless you can promise them trust fund. Even the trust fund will not work, I'm telling you. You can leave all that trust fund and they'll still abandon you in the end. God forbid, but yeah. So that's what we have for you for this week. A very heated conversation. We're going to have to continue. You guys know we're going to continue this conversation, right? That's because we're smack dab in the middle of it, right? We're doing some renovations, holidays are coming, travel, work schedules, stressors. Yeah, a lot of things external, are kind of just, swirling around us, and we have to keep our center. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe from our couch to your couch. See you next time. Bye.